So good afternoon, good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar, Experience Future Mobility Now. My name is Lisa Bock-Andersen. I am the Director for Communication and for Events and Congresses at Ertico. I am delighted to have you with us today. And I will be the host in the next hour and a bit and take you through what we have organized for today. First, I wanted to give a little bit of background on the webinars. This is a third webinar in the series of 7 webinars, which basically takes us on a journey towards the ITS World Congress in Hamburg in October. Most of the webinars cover the topics of the Congress, and the purpose really is to connect and also give you an appetizer on what is happening and what you will hear about once we come to the Congress. A very important news to remember is that registration is open now. So we really, invite you to register and join the rest of the ecosystem in what will most likely be one of the first face-to-face congresses coming up after the summer. We really look forward to seeing you in Hamburg. Now, this webinar is a little bit different from the other webinars in that rather than concentrating on one of the 6 topics, it really gives a deep dive into the Congress itself. Those of you who know the World Congresses know that we have an academic program, we have a number of technical sessions, we have demos, we have technical visits, we have tours of the city, and these elements are what we're going to go a little bit more in depth with today. So let me give you the agenda. We have a number of distinguished guests here who will give us an update. We start with Martin Huber from the Ministry of Transport and Mobility Transition in Hamburg, where he is the Director General for Transport, who will give an update, obviously, on our host city. Then I will come back and give some highlights and a little bit more in-depth knowledge about the activities that will take place during the Congress. And then we will move to a little bit more of a regional view. We will have Takehito Barada from the ITS Asia Pacific, who is Senior Vice President and who will give some insights and perspectives from that region. That will be followed by Carol Schweiger, who represents ITS America and who's also president of Schweiger Consulting. And then we will have perspectives from Europe, from the EMEA, from my lovely colleague Joanna Tsanidaki, sorry, difficult for a Dane, who is Director of Innovation and Deployment at Ertico. And last but not least, we will have Carsten Huraski, who is a Vice President, Head of Industry Solutions from HERE Technologies, who is not only a partner of Ertico, but also a very important partner for the Congress in Hamburg. So that is what we have prepared for you today. And before I hand over to Martin Huber, just very briefly, a few house rules. Everybody is in listen mode only. We will be recording the webinar. And at the end, when we've heard all the various insights, we will open for a short Q&A. So you're more than welcome to already write your questions in the tool, and then we will have a look at them at the end. So with that, I would like to say welcome again to Martin Huber. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Liza, for leaving the audience to me. I want to give you a very warm welcome, warm especially because it's really hot in Hamburg today, and it's a beautiful summer day right now. And I'm really honored to talk to you. I'm head of transport here in Hamburg City, and I want to give you some of our ideas, what you will see from my point of view from our city coming to Hamburg. Please, next slide. So the motto of our conference will be experience future mobility now. This is seriously meant because you will see right in the city many aspects of future mobility. It's real life in Hamburg, and we have done very much in the last 5 years to make things real. And I think, at least related to European circumstances, we are very advanced right now. And I can assure you that this will be a conference, first of all, a face-to-face event. In my opinion, the first really important face-to-face event in Europe in 2021. We have a low down COVID incidence in Hamburg right now. It's below 20, the incidence. And this is on a good path, and we are sinking day by day. And so I'm very sure that we will have no more flight restrictions in October when you are bound to come to Germany. And we still will have in operation all afforded high-class hygienic measures, which are in continuous adjustment in close cooperation with our health authorities and our European partners from Artico. So will be as sure as you can be coming to Hamburg. Please, next slide. This should be cut off. Please take the next one. This is giving you an idea of our city. I would say many do that it is one of the most beautiful cities we have in Europe. It's much water, it's many lakes in the very heart of the city, but also the port, the seagoing port. We are 90 kilometers from the open seas of the North Sea, but the tide is coming in and ebbing out of the city day by day. And it's really a beautiful place and an interesting place. And Hamburg is a place of mobility. And we are a place where mobility transition is showcased, because my ministry is called Transport and Mobility Transition. This is the real purpose of our Senate, of our High Senate. They want to make this sea change in mobility policy real in Hamburg, which means we are working for all measures to prevent climate change. We are working for mobility for people, not for cars. We are working for safe mobility, clean mobility, and urban supportable mobility. Next, please. So we will, besides conference, which will be, we have so many exhibitors, but you will be told later. But what will we do as a city to make you a little bit at home and to show you around in our city and what you can see in reality? We have established 4 tours you can make by bus, the 4th one by train, which are meant to introduce you to all our systems. The first one is digitizing urban traffic, which is meant especially to showcase all those new features for automated driving, for good connection, connected cars, connected vehicles, And there are many very interesting projects we can show you in Hamburg. You will be carried around by bus if you are booking such an event, and you will see safety items, our special road car detection, automatic vehicle detection by infrared cameras, influencing red light by cars and buses, Digital, which is a solution for planning, which is cooperative between street authorities, lining companies for planning life cycle. Many different items. We have the second tour, which is Hamburg sets the pace. This is meant to show the mobility transition aspect of our politics. You will see much on bicycle, on making biking possible, on connecting buses with shared cars and with shared bicycles. You will be shown our switch system, which makes sharing mobility and public mobility possible. Then very important in Hamburg is our Logistic Experience tour. This will lead you across the port. It's really a very impressive port. It's the third one in Europe, and you will place those really impressive steamers, seagoing to China, to everywhere, container shipping, automated getting down the boxes and all those things. And last but not least is our future rail experience, which includes, on the one hand, completely automated train driving in our German rail system, and our Siemens mobility company has developed this completely new automated system, which shall be the future configuration for all German rail systems, because Siemens is the main deliverer of all German rail companies. And so this, what you will see here in Hamburg, is the blueprint for everything that will take place in the years to come in the rest of Germany. So you will get many impressions of our cities, and I'll give you some pictures right now. So as a little appetizer, please go ahead with the slides. This is one feature I'm really proud of, because it's the construction site, which is immediately on air as soon as those construction site signs are established, because each of them is equipped with a little transmitter giving the position of this polygon on air, so that Google Maps everywhere this construction site is popping up in the very moment of its establishment on the street. Here you have transition in mobility. This has been a 6-lane car way before, and it's in the really heart of our city, the Jungfernstieg, the Virgin Way, and it's now for people to stay and to live. Next, please. This is mobility as a service, and combined with getting along with your bicycle. You see your bicycle is equipped with a handy mobile device, which is bringing you on the point to the red light, and it's green when you are arriving. You see the automated trains, you see the metro trains. It's all by automatic device to be entered. So this is only very little impressions I can give you now, because the 8 minutes are over. I commit and I leave my post and invite you cordially to be with me in Hamburg in October. Thank you very much for your interest.
Thank you very much, Martin, for this super interesting introduction to your city, our host city. Let me now give you just a quick insight into the Congress itself. First, I just want to say, for those who don't know, that this is a very long tradition. We've been doing congresses, European and world congresses like the one in Hamburg for many years. It is actually our 27th World Congress, over which time the ecosystem has really grown and the quality as well. So it is a proud tradition indeed. I'm going to highlight some of the more global aspects where we cooperate with the 3 regions, because as you will hear, there is also ITS Americas and ITS Asia Pacifics on behalf or on top of ITS here in Europe with Ertico. So let me just briefly highlight the plenaries. We have 3 plenaries, and on the next slide you will see that they cover sustainability, they cover integrated solutions, they cover the topic of living in a digital world. And on top, derived from these plenary sessions, we have 6 executive sessions. 2 are driven per region, so 2 are driven by Asia Pacific, 2 by the Americas, and 2 by Europe. On top of that, we have 3 regional forums where, of course, each forum is focusing on what has a special importance or focus in the region at hand. We are also, for the first time, having 2 global forums where we really look at worldwide issues. You can see here the first global forum is about mobility as a service, or mobility on demand, as I think it is called in the US. And it's really all about these new and personalized choices in the various mobility solutions and how to integrate all these different modes. And then for the logistics and ports, just real quick, there we are looking at the different cities where we've been, including Hamburg, who are all important port cities, and looking at what are the challenges and what are the common solutions. Now, for the startups, we have a fantastic program that is running 3 days, where there is a great opportunity for startups and scale-ups likewise to connect and innovate and grow. The important element on this slide really is the deadline, that on the 26th of June, your application should be in. Maybe also a reminder that those who are chosen, they will have a booth, they will have a great opportunity to pitch in front of the public, and of course also really interesting matchmaking activities that we are organizing throughout the 3 days. Now, let me just give you a quick glance of the venue. This is where it will all be happening. To the left side of the slide, this is where we will have most of the sessions, the technical sessions, and more to the right, you see in the circle the Congress Center Hamburg, also called CCH. This is where we will have our opening, our closing, our plenaries, and of course, there is more than that. We also have a really interesting demo program. And you can see here on the next slide, we have 4 sites for open road demonstrations. We have some really interesting demonstrations in the home port, including drones. And then on top of that, we have 4,500 square meters of demo hall. So there will really be a lot to look at, 45 demos in total. And then we have indeed the 4 city tours that we heard of already. Martin gave a really nice update. So suffice to say here that there will, I believe, in total be up to 60 different ITS projects that you can look at. Finally, which is very important for the industry, of course, we have the technical visits. There will be 20 different technical visits with each a capacity of 1,000 people. So make sure you sign up and have a look at what these have to offer. So I hope that gave you a little bit of a deep dive into what we are preparing for you. And now I would like to hand over and begin with the regional overview. And please, Barada-san, the floor is yours. Let's have some thoughts from the Asia Pacific region, please.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. My name is Takehiko Barada from ITS Asia Pacific, but today, specifically from ITS Japan, rather than from ITS Asia Pacific. So let me briefly introduce ITS Japan. ITS Japan was founded in 1994 and is currently having 255 members from private companies, consultants, institutes, and academia. Next slide, please. The ITS Japan is not a governmental body, but a kind of a window organization to public sector. We keep close relationships with public organizations at national level and local level. Also, as a Secretariat Office of ITS Asia Pacific, we collaborate with ITS America and LTPO ITS Europe. Next slide, please. The ITS Japan started its endeavor of ITS 30 years ago as an application field of information and communication technologies. After then, we shifted our efforts to the objectives that were oriented to cooperative services for safety, efficiency, and enhanced mobility. Now we are creating more integrated mobility services to mitigate global challenges in terms of technologies and social framework. Next slide, please. We defined relationships among values for individual, the society, and mobility. People want self-fulfillment and reliefs from their concerns. Diversity must be respected. Physical experiences that are tied with other people and teamwork are essential values even in the era of cyberspace or during or after COVID-19. We have a variety of challenges such as aging and declining populations, industrial competition, natural disasters, global warming, and other environmental issues. Among them, revitalization of the society is closely related to how people behave. Accessible, efficient, and sustainable mobility will significantly contribute to create values and transform our society. Next slide, please. We defined the roles of ITS Japan as a non-profit neutral organization in this way. Scope and expectations of ITS keep expanding. The more transportation is integrated, the more collaboration among diverse stakeholders is needed. ITS community should reach out to facilitate collaboration across the industrial sectors, jurisdictions, and academic disciplines. Next slide, please. ITS Japan will participate in the ITS World Congress this October in Hamburg with various public and private organizations for sessions and exhibitions. At Hall B7 in Hamburg Messe, we have Japan Pavilion by ITS Japan and 5 Japanese private exhibitors, Honda, Panasonic, Toyota, Aishin, and Denso. The next slide, please. There are 18 exhibitors inside Japan Pavilion. Cabinet Office of Japanese Government, Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications, Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism, UTMS Society of Japan, Vehicle Information and Communication System Center, Mitsubishi Electric, Fujitsu, Sumitomo Electric, NEC, Oki Electric, KDDI, Aichi Steel, ITS Info Communications Forum, PDB Group Japan, IHI, Hitachi Solutions, and ITS Japan. The contents from the exhibitors are various. For example, Cabinet Office, their theme will be realizing automated driving through public-private cooperation on R&D and pilot tests to alleviate social issues such as traffic accident, congestions, mobility equity. From UTMS, traffic signal information provision for automated vehicles will be exhibited. Fujitsu will exhibit new platform and services to realize the goal of sustainable mobility society. The Honda will exhibit the latest technologies aiming at safety and environmental goals. Lastly, Toyota will provide current situation for the deployment of V2X technologies. Next slide, please. ITS Japan, since this April, has opened a new website to introduce our member organizations' ITS World Congress related activities by videos, technical brochures, and so on. So please visit our website to preview their products, technologies, and researches before the Congress. Many of them will go Hamburg, so please expect their real exhibitions. Next slide, please. Yeah, see you in Hamburg. Auf Wiedersehen.
Thank you so much for this good introduction to what we can expect at the Congress from your side, and I am impressed with your German knowledge. I'm sure our German friends on the call appreciate the effort. So with no further ado, we will continue this regional overview, and I would now like us to move to the Americas perspective. And again, as I introduced before, Carol is representing ITS America here. Carol, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you so much, Lisa. First, I want to thank Ertico and ITS America for the opportunity to give you some ideas from the Americas and sort of what has shaped our participation in the upcoming World Congress. I've been very, very fortunate to have attended all of the World Congress meetings except for one. They are the best international conference that relates to ITS. It's a wonderful learning experience as well as a tremendous networking experience. So these are the 4 topics that I'm going to cover in my presentation. Next slide, please. And I wanted to start by just giving you an idea of what we consider in the US right now are key priorities for transportation technology. And you can see here, there are 4 of them. I won't read them off to you, but what has helped us in our participation in the World Congress is the focus on these 4 areas. The first one always being safety, and how can we utilize ITS to improve safety? That's always number 1. We're looking very much at helping to revive our economy due to COVID, and by continuing to build our smart infrastructure. We're focused on jobs in the transportation sector, and also delivering equitable transportation around the country, utilizing ITS technologies such as mobility on demand or mobility as a service. Equity is a considerable discussion around the world. It's something that's very important to us as well. Next slide, please. One thing that I'd like to talk about a little bit is a countrywide project that is called ITS for Us. And it's a $40 million multimodal effort in the US that is identifying ways to provide more efficient, more equitable, and more accessible transportation options, specifically for underserved communities. And those are the communities that really often face the most challenges in terms of accessing transportation, which is really essential for life. And so this particular program really is helping to solve these mobility challenges for all travelers, but we have a specific focus on persons with disabilities, older adults, people that come from low-income neighborhoods, rural residents, and veterans. So the program is going to enable communities to build local partnerships, to develop and deploy integrated mobility solutions. And this is really going to be able to overcome these challenges that we're talking about. Next slide, please. So this gives you an overview of our America's led sessions in the World Congress, and you can see the topics within each of the 6 categories of topics that we're going to be covering in the World Congress. This gives you an idea of some of our focus areas. There's been a lot of discussion, for example, in goods movement about how to manage the curb. So the curb is being used by a lot of different vehicles, not only personal vehicles, but delivery vehicles. That's one of our focus areas, for example. Next slide, please. And what I want to leave you with is 2 of our executive sessions that Lisa talked about before. And so this first one is a very, very interesting concept that was developed by one of my colleagues, Jane Lappin. And it actually is applying what we call herd immunity, which I'm sure a lot of people on the line have heard about in relation to COVID. If we get enough people vaccinated, we will have herd immunity. Well, we can apply that same idea to automated vehicles. So when a sufficient proportion of people in the community are vaccinated or otherwise immune to an infectious disease, the disease can't spread. So applying this to traffic safety, highly automated vehicles will be able to sense something that's foreseeable, like a crash. And so they'd be able to provide some safety buffers for human-driven vehicles that are around them, because all the vehicles won't be automated at the same time. So at a certain level of penetration of automated vehicles, they'll provide the public safety equivalent of herd immunity. And on this slide, you can see in this executive session, here are some of the questions that we're going to answer. Next slide, please. And so we have another executive session that is asking the question that a lot of us have been asking: where are the automated vehicles? So back around 2014 or so, a lot of the car makers and technology companies said, oh, by 2019, you'll see automated vehicles everywhere. Well, we haven't exactly gotten to that point yet. So this session is really going to talk about, what is at the core of getting automated vehicles on the street, and talking about what is going to be happening in the next several years in that area. So at the core of this promise of automated vehicles, it's having innovative business models that really drive the investment and development of automated vehicles. And so where do we really stand with that whole area? We're going to be answering that question in this particular session. Next slide, please. And I look forward to your questions. Thanks very much. Back to you, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Carol. This really gives a good overview of what can be expected from the Americas. Really, really interesting topics. I think with no further ado, also due to timing, let's move to the last region, Europe, and I hand over to Johanna to give us a flavor. Please, Johanna, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lisa, for the great introduction. I think this Congress is going to be the best from the 27 yet. I was listening to Carol, and it's going to be very real. And Experience Future Mobility now, it is giving you immediately that message. So the future is now. We are aware that we want to change it, and we are changing it. And I don't have to introduce the pictures, the photos that you see on the slide. We need to change mobility. Climate change is actually climate emergency. And if you go to the next slide, please, Cordelia, you're going to see that it's the entire sector, and especially the European Commission, that has set the Green Deal targets. With a new concept and new targets for everyone. And let me tell you here, Ertico ITS Europe is really representing EMEA. So in the next slide, you're going to see, of course, in the next slide, please. You're going to see very tiny dots there with the logos of our 120 members. But what is very important is that we have a vision shared by all the membership, the partners, as we call them. And this vision, it goes up to 2030. We are going to be working on updating the vision for 2050 very soon. But as you can see, we see the vision in mobility: connected, automated, electric, cross-border, on-demand, user-centric, digital, and multimodal. And this is what we follow. If you go to the next slide, in our 4 focus areas that we work in Ertico, we have divided our work in areas that are more focused. That's what it means, focus areas. So connected, automated mobility or driving, clean mobility, urban mobility, transport and logistics. And it's tiny, of course, you cannot see the milestones, but we have a target and we know where we are going. And I'm going to give you some more details on that, because I want to give you the priorities of the EMEA region. Thank you. And I start with the connected and automated driving. I'm not going to go through all the bullet points, but already you see accelerating automation and connectivity for safer and smarter mobility. It is a very important point. Safety always is a priority for us. And then if we go to the transport and logistics, of course, priorities, creating the digital infrastructure for freight, transport and logistics operations, where you see also this entire discussion, or you will see as well in the Congress, well, the discussion on the physical internet, full digitalization, automation, logistics, value chains, and so on. And if we go to the next focus area, you're going to see urban mobility, delivering seamless mobility for all. This is the target. So we are going to be touching upon or discussing mass mobility as a service, multimodal mobility network, societal uptake, or an ITS, which is very important, recognized by many decision makers that is key for a lot of concepts and especially automation in EMEA. And the next slide is going to show you the priorities on clean mobility. Of course, I started with this, with the climate emergency. Reducing environmental impact is a very high priority in EMEA. Using ITS to do it, using electromobility, reducing pollution from older vehicles, and so on and so forth, are key points in the whole discussion. And if you go to the next slide, I'm going to give you some highlights of the sessions that we are holding, because we also hold sessions in the Ertico room, and as well as in the rest of the program. But these are the sessions that are it's good to highlight. So we have one on citizen engagement and CCAM, connected cooperative automated mobility. We have the Mass Summit, traffic management workshop with 3 sessions on the TM 2.0 and the work that is being done there. The City Moonshot Initiative, which is a very important initiative, asking 300 cities around the globe on their needs and priorities. Academy on decarbonization under the Ertico Academy training. Mobility out of the box discussion, and much, much more. And I think that's my last slide. I don't want to take more time. I understand we're going to have a discussion. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to present to you our region's priorities. Lisa.
Thank you very much, Johanna. I think this certainly gives a good overview of the 3 regions. Now, last but not least, let's hear from here. Carsten, the floor is yours, please.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa, and welcome also from my side. My name is Carsten Horaski. I'm Vice President of Industry Solutions at HERE Technologies. And thanks to all the previous speakers and all the topics they have raised. I mean, I could have talked about all those, being it automated driving and connected driving and transport and logistics solutions. But for this session today, I really want to focus on the seamless mobility topic, and what HERE Technology does in that context, and also why collaboration is so important. Also, I need to highlight that we're really looking forward for the event in October, because a lot of the materials which I will be presenting will be brought to life at the event in October. And then when I mean to live, it's really great to see everybody live again. So with that, the first slide, please let me give you a bit of an introduction around HERE Technologies. If you could just click through the animation. So HERE Technologies is a software technology provider specialized on location intelligence. We're around about 9,000 employees around the world, 56 companies, 56 countries. And what we do is we develop high quality data and software services to create location-based solutions. And location-based solutions can enable faster deliveries, safer journeys, sustainable city planning, better infrastructure management, and I could go on and on. And what we do with those is really help our customer solve business problems. What is really essential when you work around a location is really to exchange also around data and enable a data exchange in a neutral and private and secure environment. This is one of our core focus areas, which we're fueling with our location platform, utilizing a lot of the capabilities we have and providing those to our partners. We're clearly dedicated to co-creation and innovation. with customers and partners, and a lot of those innovational topics will also be shown at ITS in October with some of the companies and organizations which Martin mentioned in the beginning. With that, let me dive a little bit deeper into like the new mobility challenges and what needs to be solved. On this slide, on the left-hand side, you now see some of the typical challenges we see all when we want to optimize the way urban mobility and new mobility can actually be improved from where we are today to where we want to be. Let me go into two specific examples: new generation and new desires. The millennials, they want everything at their fingertips, right? Waiting for a train to arrive is not a habit which has been established in the internet age and not in the mobile age. And therefore, this scheduled timetabling is a challenge in mobility for some of the newer generations because they want everything as a service and on demand. The other example is really the mounting pressure on cities and government to regulate city centers. Also, let me here give you one example. In Paris, around about 66% of the public space is streets for cars, but individual cars move only 17% of the population. So you can see there is some challenges. And in that regard, Paris City already announced that it's changing the traffic flow through the city. And I think also Martin in the beginning gave a good example of what Hamburg is doing in the context of the Jungfernstieg. So what this means to us, if you click once, please, for the animation, keeping that in mind, we need to move from a fixed fares schedule-based model to a dynamic as a service model to cater for some of the consumer expectations when it comes to their future mobility needs. Secondly, we're still in the, call it the tail end, hopefully, of this pandemic, but nevertheless, I think there is trends out there which requires us from moving from a scenario where we're moving together to a more contactless mobility, which also can be considered. And lastly, and likely most important, and that's why I will also dive deeper into this, we're moving from a fragmented network into a more orchestrated ecosystem play. And of course, solving all those mobility as a service needs will require utmost adherence to privacy and data protection regulation components. So if you go to the next slide, please, let me go a little bit deeper into the role of location can play into all this. When you think about location, it fundamentally answers the question of where, right? Where is my location? Where is my destination? Where's my car? Where's my bike? Where's my bus, my train, my charging station? And if you combine all these data assets, you get to a very specific real-time information and location intelligence. However, all those data sources and the mobility data providers, which are listed here, being its trains and peoples and vehicles and weather information, they are sitting today in data silos, right? The functions are sitting in one company, and data is in many cases not shared broadly because of perceived as a competitive edge, because of the fear of breaking data privacy concerns, but also some lack of neutral platforms to aggregate and exchange data. And the misconception about the value of the data is also inherent to a lot of these points. But this is clearly an anchor point of what needs to be undertaken to solve some of the urban mobility challenges I had mentioned in the beginning. If you just go to the next one, please. So when this all comes together, so I talked about the different mobility operators, being it micro-mobility, on-demand mobility, the cities, or public transport operators. They're all having these data lakes at their fingertips. And we're suggesting that the data needs to be shared more broadly so that we can benefit for it. And how the sharing could be done is really also the role where here technologies can help as a tech and software provider, which then helps solve some of those data normalization problems, data logic problems, data structuring problems, so that they can be normalized, they can help building up an index about the real world, And this is then the foundation for a map, but also to apply business logic, visualize the data and the context in order to provide better solutions, and clearly also to exchange and monetize the use cases. If you go to my next slide, please. When you go through now the mobility journey, and I think you can just click through the animation here as well. Location really can tie all this together. It starts with a intermodal journey planning, where consumers today, they don't want to go to multiple apps or websites to create their intermodal journey, but they would like to get APIs being connected in straightforward solutions which allow a better intermodal journey plan. Secondly, everybody's expecting a more efficient ride. So also here I want to take one example actually we did with Moja, the VW Group ride-hailing organization in Hamburg actually, where we have been working with them to optimize where they can have pick-up and drop-off points and overall improve the accuracy and ETA, so the estimated time of arrival, so that the consumer experience gets better through location intelligence. Third, it's really about the driver and the user navigation, right? What is the best route? What is the most efficient route? What is the route which is most suitable for my car, considering that maybe I got a petrol engine or I got an electric engine? And then fourth, really staying relaxed, right? You stay relaxed if you have real-time information at your fingertips and know all the times about what's going on. And if you click once more, please, and then the ecosystem engagement is really critical around exchanging the data and bringing it all together so that each experience gets better because it is connected to a whole flow in the spirit of what the consumers expect. Now, taking this all together and kind of closing my little speech here, with the change in policies and regulations, we see there's now a window of opportunity for mobility service providers to collaborate. The challenges are big, as many of my previous speakers mentioned, and we believe like data sharing, collaboration, location technologies are key ingredients to provide better solutions for urban mobility and for further mobility solutions around the world. With that, I want to thank you for your attention. I'm looking forward to see everybody in Hamburg at the ITS World Congress. If you have any questions in between, visit here.com or just reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to follow up on also your questions if we can't address them in the Q&A now. Thank you. Back to you, Lisa.
Thank you very much, Carsten. Very, very interesting questions on how to move forward indeed. So let's open the Q&A now. I'm looking a little bit on what is coming in. Let me start with Barada-san, please. I would like to talk a little bit about decarbonization in the transport sector, which of course we all know is important. There is a question here, and the question is, like the European Green Deal that Johanna mentioned, which is of course key in Europe, does the Japanese government or ITS Japan have any action plan for decarbonization in the transport sector? Please.
Yeah, thank you very much for the very, very interesting and timely questions. So yes, Japanese government, there actually are very many action plans at the various ministries. So I can't explain all of them today because there are so many of them. But at ITS Japan, today, just 4 hours ago, we have announced our new 5-year plan at our annual meeting. The new midterm plan contains new activities for carbon neutral, in addition to the safe, secure, efficient mobility and resilient mobility. So carbon neutral is now focused and placed as our ITS Japan's new goals from today.
Okay, well, that's very timely.
Very timely question.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you very much. There is a question to Carsten here. You talked a lot about mobility data, and the question is around what data are you actually collecting, and with whom do you share this data? I noticed you mentioned yourself that there were some concerns which needed to be tackled so that you can move forward. But the question is, what sort of data are you collecting, and with whom do you share them with?
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. So as I mentioned, like, data is kind of essential and really important to unlock some of the challenges we have in various industries. Now, when it comes to kind of movement data, at the moment, we're interested really in real movement data. So that means where people are, what the streams are, and those data can be provided from, from cars, from public transport, from applications, from everything. And we're aggregating this data on our platform, which is highly GDPR compliant, highly privacy concerned. We're using technologies for anonymization and so forth. But there was a certain hurdle which had to be overcome, that organizations and our customers and partners understand the capabilities, but also really the needs, right? When GDPR was introduced in Europe, everybody was shying back from exchanging data. Now, as all the different tools are in place, it is truly important, and organizations are recognizing this, to exchange the data with those policies in mind. We're using this data, for instance, for some of our ride-hailing customers who need movement data to bring their fleet back into operations after the pandemic, right? There was many of those ride-hailing companies slowed down their operations because less people traveled. And now, as we see people movement starting around the world, they need to know how many cars will be needed so that they can create a predictive model on how much usage to be expected. That's one example. The other example I want to give is we're also working with our automotive customers, and also particularly our shareholders, BMW, Daimler, and Audi, on collecting real-time sensor data from cars. And I think Carol mentioned in her speech also something around like hazard warnings. And we have already a service available called Hazard Warnings, leveraging exactly this sensor data from cars, identifying fog, heavy rain, aquaplaning, accidents, and so forth, and use that for, call it, V2X services to inform the environment around what's happened. But this, I think, at this stage is just a starting point. And with more data, the services just become better. You can provide more incidents, and with that also can provide more support to drivers, but also in the future to automated cars.
Okay, thank you. Yes, indeed, there is a balance. On the one hand, there are these challenges, but at the same time, as you say, collaboration can really bring better consumer experience. It can really bring more safety, etc.
Really, the neutrality here is the key point. Yeah, that makes this important, and that in our conversations with our customers took a lot of concerns away when they know that our business model is not to monetize their data on our behalf, but monetize their data on their behalf.
Yes. Okay, there is another question here, Carol, for you, and that is linked a little bit to the pandemic and how ITS can help bring back the economy after COVID-19. I know you touched a little bit on smart infrastructure, but the question is if you can elaborate a little bit more on the role of ITS.
Sure, thanks for that question. I think we're all looking at what the answers are around the world to that question. I think to start with, we really can't go back to what we did pre-pandemic. And we recognize that COVID-19 just impacted every part of the transportation industry. So when we look at trying to revive the economy, we really need to utilize technology so that we can depend on a safe transportation system. And so the technologies that can help us the most in bringing the economies back are going to address things like congestion, which is, for example, I'm in the Boston area, and during the pandemic, there were very, very low congestion levels because people were at home. But now, as businesses are starting to open up, the congestion is coming back, and it's coming back fast, and it's coming back even more than it was before, because people are not sure about taking public transport. So first, we need to have the technology to address those congestion levels. And that could be something like predictive analytics that improve safety and efficiency. It could be the infrastructure like sensor technology that's been adapted to, provide things like contact tracing. And the other part of it, which has been prevalent, I think, around the world, is what we call sort of touchless transportation, which is where you have systems like contactless payment systems and mobile ticketing. So here, during the pandemic, a lot of transport authorities had their systems running for free and not paying a fare, because that required a significant interaction with the driver. So here, if you utilize contactless payment systems or mobile ticketing, you really don't have to worry about that. And the only other thing that I'll mention related to how can technology help us is that we really need to protect both the transport workers as well as the passengers. And there are new technologies now. Several of our speakers have talked about mobility as a service, for example. Mm-hmm. And one of the really great features that has been added in a number of mobility as a service systems is providing you information on how crowded a public transport vehicle is, when was the last time it was cleaned, and other things that may change your decision making about taking public transport, for example.
Okay, very, very interesting and very topical indeed in these times. I have a question here for Johanna, a very specific one. What is the best way to ensure that a session at the Congress is interesting, Johanna? That is very hands-on, please.
That's a very good question. So we had, before the COVID, we had the death by PowerPoint, when everyone was giving long presentations with so many slides. And then during the COVID times, and they're not finished yet, but let me be optimistic. We had this overload of webinars, and screen time was hitting the roof and all that. So now I think we are going to see a different kind of Congress in the sense that, as I said before, this is the Congress that is more real than the others, because it's talking about reality and what is happening now, but also many sessions, not only the ones that Ertico is organizing, but all of the others as well, because I had a look on the descriptions, are more interactive, and they are more promoting this dialogue, not this presentation one after the other, but this interaction with among the panelists and with the audience. And yes, it's always ideal to have speakers that have 3 minutes to position themselves, but then it should be something that the audience can engage with, and not just sit and listen without the opportunity to have an opinion. So I think that is the best way to ensure that the session is a good one for me.
Okay, thank you. So engagement and interaction is the way forward. Excellent.
And keeping it real.
Carsten,
Yeah.
yes,
Sorry.
being real. Carsten, there is a follow-up question for you. You talked about development of urban solutions, but the question is here, what about rural solutions?
Yeah, it's a very good point, because we talk a lot about the densely populated areas and the urban zones where there is a wide variety of mobility options for the consumer to choose from. But in a lot of discussion, we actually forget about the rural, because the business case isn't as prominent,
No.
but that forces basically the rural environment to keep with a, call it, car ownership model, and then also in many cases even with a combustion engine, because we also don't have necessarily the electric vehicles charging infrastructure available. So I think in that regard, the urban environment and also sometimes the suburbs is something we should not forget, and figure out ways how we can integrate the planning into a multimodal journey. I can give you one example. So we work with our partner Deutsche Bahn on how we can optimize like park and ride solutions. So we did a proof of concept with them in the Stuttgart area. So how we can integrate basically a park and ride parking spot into a multimodal journey towards Stuttgart downtown, so that commuters know the journey from home, how long the drive takes to the park and ride spot, then how long the walk takes to the right train station, and then really the drive towards their destination rail station. So this is some scenarios around how to integrate like suburbs and also rural areas. And then I think we also as an industry need to keep looking at scenarios to not forget the rural environment, and make sure they keep being connected to the mobility offerings which we have. And I know there's startups around the world kind of even focusing specifically on mobility solution for suburban and urban environments, with specific, call it microbuses and shared mobility solutions, then not with a fixed timetable, but more, and not with fixed like bus stops, but really with more creative solutions and how to bundle and still being able to create a compelling business case, even though it's not as many people as in city centers.
Very interesting. We have that also here in Belgium coming up more and more. So indeed, it is important not to forget. Carol, there is another question for you linked to the ITS for Us program that you mentioned. Can you provide a little bit more information about the expected impact of this program on mobility in the United States, please?
Definitely. One thing that I didn't mention in my little discussion about that is that fortunately, there have been 5 awards or 5 projects that are now being funded. And I think once I tell you just a little bit about each one, you'll see what the impacts are. The first one is in Iowa. And what they're going to do there is develop an open source and open data application for smart devices like a smartphone or a smartwatch. And it's going to be called the Unified Health Connector app. And the technology is going to enable users to schedule and manage medical appointments and their transportation all in one application. That's something that we've been talking about for years, but haven't really been able to do. And with transportation being such a key element of health, that's going to be a great project. In Atlanta, they're actually going to be looking at what's called the complete trip, and looking at that through the development of something that they call safe trips in a connected transportation network, which is going to integrate connected vehicle data with an open source and mobile application. And the application is going to provide the user with the ability to create a personalized trip plan with information about navigating kind of physical infrastructure, which is something we talk about a lot for persons with disabilities, especially the ability to deal with obstacles and things like that. Another one of the projects is in California, although it'll be California, Oregon, and Washington, which are states on the West Coast. They're going to be using some new data standards relating to booking and payment integration, and also allowing small transit agencies to kind of get into the mobility as a service game. And then we've got
perhaps just one example more, if I may. Yeah, because we're running a little bit out of time.
Yep. Just one more is in the Buffalo, New York area. They're going to be developing an open trip planner that's going to be customized for accessibility. So giving turn-by-turn directions and things like that.
Okay, very interesting projects indeed. I'm just looking at, maybe we can just have one quick answer here before we end, Johanna. There is another question for you. Ertico is running projects for and with its members. Indeed, that is correct. Are you presenting these, all of them, during the ITS World Congress, is the question.
So thank you, Lisa. We will try to present them all, but we cannot, and we are not allowed to have a session presenting a project. That was clear guidelines from you, from your department, and for quite some time, for quite some years now, we don't. What we are trying to do, and it's the best, is to make sure that the results or the work that comes out of a project makes sense in the entire picture and the entire ecosystem, that you see the benefits as a user, as industry, as public authorities, and so on. So you will not find a session that says project so and so. But you will find many, many sessions where Ertico partners are in there. So it's a yes and
right.
no.
It's a yes and no, so to speak. All right. We have one more super quick question for ITS Japan. You mentioned that there will be 4 governmental organizations in Japan Pavilion. Could you just mention 1 or 2 of them? Because we have a minute left. Perhaps you can give 1 or 2 examples of what they will exhibit.
That's a surprising question, sir. But the contents have not been disclosed, but I'm sure one of the common big focuses will be CAV, a curricular automated vehicle, with the latest progress and the pilot test and R&D under the name of SIP ADAS. That's my answer, yeah.
Okay, well, that's a peek view into something which has not been published yet, so thank you for that. All right, everybody, we're coming to the end. I just want to thank our speakers very much for taking the time to participate, and also all those who have joined us and listened in and posed questions. Thank you very much. The next webinar in this series is on July 8th, Goods Journey to Customers, where we're looking at ports, freights, logistics, So please do join us on the 8th of July. And with that, I want to close the webinar. Enjoy the very warm weather. Personally, I pray that it will be a little less warm in the days to come, but we all have our favorite. Thank you very much for today, and talk to you in July.